It's the moment in the cycle where people wonder where we are, what's gonna happen. It is Q4, so is the top in? Is the top coming? In this video, I want to take a realistic look at what the best outlook is when it comes to cycle, top and alt season. It's a little what we discussed in the last videos, but from slightly different angles. And I think that this is gonna be a real interesting one. Whether you are a bull, a bear, it doesn't really matter. We all wanna know what's gonna happen, right? And the answer is that nobody knows until it happens, of course. So all we can work with is data, and it happens that we have the data. That doesn't predict anything, but crypto is all a matter of odds, of chances, of betting, and you place your bets on what's most likely to happen. And that is something that we can see. So let's take a look. Welcome to the FOMO Factory. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to do one-on-one calls with me, whatever to go over your portfolio exit strategy. There's a link down below to the Alpha Factory. But let's get into it. Now, first, I worked this whole weekend really hard on a list with potential reasons why alt season may not happen. I put a lot of work in this, have to research like, hey, what gives us an alt season and what might be the reason that it will not happen this cycle. So I've got this list right here, and this is it. Take a good look at it. I think it's pretty interesting to see, right? Like you always have to keep in mind, like, yeah, it can't happen, but for a good reason, right? So I listed the reasons right here, and yeah, man, it took me a lot of time, but I think that this is kind of it right now. So let me jump into why that is. Ha ha ha. So at the moment, Bitcoin 110K, 111K, that's a small bounce right now after it came down in the last couple of days. Nothing too crazy, but what is interesting though is that we also, again, on a weekly close, you know, it's not a lower low compared to where we were in September. It's still in a good uptrend. And what's a matter of fact even more interesting to me is that Bitcoin just made a real bullish pattern, because it did exactly, again, what it does always this cycle. And that's that it goes up, right? It makes new highs. It goes up pretty hard. It ranges for a while and it sweeps these lows right here. As you can see, we were going up, going down, sweep lows. Here we were going up, sideways down, sweeps the lows before it goes up. And that's what we see quite a lot in this cycle so far. So if you look at Bitcoin, it is so far nothing different than what it has been. And that makes me believe like, hey, we are still on track. Of course, every time we do sweep a low and make a new temporary short-term low, it's kind of scary, but you know, that's how Bitcoin moves this cycle. Now, there's of course an argument to be made that the cycle is over because it is Q4. And like I said earlier, and I think that this is really important to understand. It's not that I have the answer, but the way of looking at it, take it into account, because you can say, and there are a lot of people that that actually do that, say, well, nothing really matters, but it's Q4 and that's it, right? It's Q4. Bitcoin is based on nothing, and crypto is based on nothing except the fact that it is Q4 of the post-halving year, and therefore we should go down. Now look, I am definitely, and you might remember me as one of the people that says like, hey, until proven otherwise, that's what it is, right? That works. And until the cycle proves that it is different, we should keep in mind that it's not different. So I am the biggest, not this time is not differenter, I think, of everybody. But you want to keep an open mind to it, because you also want to ask yourself like, okay, yeah, Bitcoin always topped out at the end of the post-halving year. But why did it do that? Did it do that just because it was the post-halving year? Or does it do that because Bitcoin follows the whole business cycle, the whole liquidity cycle, and that always happened to top out at the end of the post-halving year, which is already right translated. If you look at the ISM, if you look at the rate cuts that are just happening right now, QT that's about to come to an end, there are many factors, the M2, there are many factors that show that macro-wise, it says top is not in, by far not. Right, so the only thing that I can think of and that I see that people say is it's Q4. Okay, and to be fair, again, until proven otherwise, it's a good statement. It's a good argument, definitely. Like, yes, keep in mind though, Q4. Right, it's 4 years this cycle, right, and that could be 48 months, that could be 46 months, that could be 50 months. It's not timed perfectly, right? And what it could also mean is that Bitcoin says like, well, January we're gonna top out, right? That's very possible. In 2021, we saw the top in November. In 2017, we saw the top in December. And then in 2013, we saw the top in November, December, combination kind of it. Right, so, of course, it could be a month earlier, right? But it could also be a month later. That chance is, like, based on seasonality, exactly just as high. Now, what is interesting is that altcoins, and we'll come back to that in a second, and I want to make it clear why I think that Altseason is likely and where the max pain is going to be. But altcoins always top out later than Bitcoin, and that only makes sense as well. Of course, I mean, that's the risk ladder, right? People go into low risk assets, and then they go lower and lower on the risk curve, basically, or higher on the risk curve, lower market cap wise. So even if, let's say, Bitcoin tops out December, January, November, whatever, it could still be that altcoins run for another month or 2 months after that. So there's a lot of saying like, well, time is running out. Yeah, according to what? Right? The only thing is astrology, basically. Right? It is November, so it's over. There's a little bit more to that, to it than that. But okay, good to be cautious. Good to have your eyes open right now. There are also people saying if we close below the 50 weekly moving average, then there's likely a bear market coming if we have multiple closes below it. Because overall, that has been the case. Closed below it and was a bear market. We closed below it, there was a bear market. Then again, here we also closed multiple weeks below it. Here we closed multiple weeks below it. Yeah, that was a pretty good time to buy. So that argument based on one moving average that sometimes was correct and sometimes wasn't correct, if you trade off of that, then I think that yeah, I don't know, it didn't really seem to work out so far. So when is the cycle over? Look, again, that's something that I don't know, of course. And that's something that you don't know, that nobody knows. But all I know is we need to look at more than just the seasonality. We are now getting rate cuts. Okay, this is an interesting one. So let's go look at what happened before when we had rate cuts, right? So here we are, and we have here the Fed balance sheet overlaid as well. So we can also take a look at that, and let's make that one green, right? Fed balance sheet, nicely green. That's how we like it, right? And let's overlay Bitcoin as well, and let's make that orange, and then just see what usually happens, because again, Bitcoin and crypto, they move based on liquidity and not on which month it is. That's a little weird, actually. So if we take a look, we now are in a rate cutting cycle. We just had a rate cut. We get another rate cut this month. At least that chance is it's pretty locked in at this moment. And they also said that they, in the coming months, are likely to gonna end QT. Now, for some people that might feel like, oh, QE, it's not necessarily QE, right? QE is just like where the Fed balance sheet goes up, and QT is where it goes down. But it could also be that it like goes sideways, right? That's always a possibility as well. And if it goes sideways, then I feel like, man, also fine, because we had moments in the crypto market where it went sideways and where we went up really hard. The only thing is that we have never seen an alt season when there was QT, but we had it during sideline periods and we had it during QE. So especially for the altcoin market, the fact that they're now cutting rates and stopping QT. I remember half a year or a year ago, every altcoin bear basically said, well, we have QT and there are no rate cuts, so alt season is not going to happen. Well, now these arguments are out of the window. But now it's like, yeah, but now it's too late. It is not too late. In 2017, we had alt season until, or in that cycle, until pretty much March 2018. Only when Bitcoin already Pico topped, that's where alt season started. And I will explain to you why that is. Because I also understand that people say like, well, there's no retail. Okay, cool. I can comfort you in that because that's the last thing that we need for an alt season. Really believe me. And I will explain to you why that is. But again, let me show you this. Okay, so we have the federal balance sheet now going down, right? So there's QT going on. Yeah, that's overall not really great. You can see it right here as well. Here it went down, and Bitcoin basically only went down. When they stopped that, right? When they stopped that, it's not when Bitcoin immediately went up, right? But it was at this point right here. And it was enough for Bitcoin to say like, all right, there's gas in the tank right now. Then we started to have some rate cuts as well. Here, this blue line, these are the rate cuts. And this thing going down is, insane, especially for the lower risk assets, so especially altcoins. So when they started doing rate cuts, it was basically full on bull market again. Now, one thing happened right there. We got the rate cuts, but COVID happened, so Bitcoin still went down. But after that happened, it was, it started to climb up again. Here we started to get rate cuts, and Bitcoin basically, it went mega parabolic right here, right? And now we're getting the rate cuts again, and we go. So the macro conditions are very much in our favor right now, and therefore it is always such a wise thing to not be scared at lows and just feel like, man, let me just buy that dip. Like, I want to buy when it's high, so there is more downside risk and there is less reward. So although it feels more scary, let me buy the dip for once, right? Then there's less downside risk, although it doesn't feel like that, but your emotions are doing the complete opposite actually, right? And there's more upside potential, but it also doesn't feel like that, because if we are already low, then it's hard to imagine the upside. But of course, the lower we are, the more upside there actually is, right? It is that simple, but it's maybe not that easy. But if you look at the altcoin market, and this is where we are, right? And I spoke about this last week. Like, look, every time we get to this lower trend line, that has been a buy in full history of the altcoin market, actually. If you look at this parallel channel, you could take it back all the way here where it started a little resistance and here support. And every time we got there, whether it was during the COVID crash, whether it was in the bear market bottom, whether it was during the tariffs or during whatever the hell happened right here, it was always a good buy at that moment. And therefore spoke about, look, I'm going to shop. I bought some Dogecoin, I bought some Cardano, these old dinosaur coins. I have a good reason for that. Watch another video, I'll explain to you why. But I bought these coins. I bought some Clearpool. I had no position in that yet as well, so I bought that. And so far, it had a pretty good bounce, right? It's not up a lot, but still, if you look like, hey, where's the upside? Well, this is the always been the ultimate downside. So I'm basically with a little profit still sitting there. That's good, right? The upside is that we go to the higher, to the upper trend line right there. That's how it's been moving this cycle so far. What is the real good case scenario? That's the, alt season. And then we jump way above it. And then this buy right here is epic, right? So let's talk about alt season right now real quick. Because again, I see, of course, a lot of sentiment and messages that it's over and that it's not going to happen. But the reason why is really missing often, right? Again, except for the fact that it's simply October. Yeah, the thing is though that if right, which is in my opinion not really the case, but if the cycle and purely the cycle is only everything that matters, liquidity doesn't play a role in a financial market, but that macro doesn't matter, that nothing matters, but purely cycle, then I'm like, okay, if we only look at the cycle, then why can we combine with that say that alt season is not going to happen, because alt season is part of that same cycle, right? So then you get like, well, the cycle is 100% intact, but except the alt season. Okay, but now it's getting a little unrealistic in my opinion. Because why? Because it didn't happen yet. Is that the reason that it won't happen? Because that's a little weird, right? Like, oh, it didn't happen yet, so it can't happen. Like, I try to understand. And I'm saying this and I'm preaching about this so often because this is how people get wrecked. This is how people got wrecked last cycle as well, when Bitcoin here was making new all-time highs at this point. Right? If you look at this chart, here you go. At this point right here, let me get the right chart, by the way, otherwise it doesn't make freaking sense. Green is Bitcoin, right? Here, Bitcoin was making new all-time highs. Previous top was 20K. Here, it was sitting at like 35, 40K, right? So Bitcoin was already twice almost above its previous all-time high. Just like this cycle, right? Almost twice. Went from 69 to 126. And what did people say right here? Altcoins underperform. They made a new low on their Bitcoin pair. And a way bigger low than over here, right? So if you can't handle this, then you can imagine that this was already like, then that was totally for people to say like, wow, fuck altcoins, this is over. And what happened there? That was the best buying opportunity people ever got since this decade, basically. Since a decade. And that's because, of course, you are hoping for altcoins all the way down to outperform. You get wrecked, and then time capitulating. It's terrible. In the meantime, you see Bitcoin going up. You feel like, what the fuck? Why? I'm taking more risk for less returns. And you start to hate altcoins, of course. And that creates bears, right? It's not that they are bearish on altcoins necessarily from the get-go. It's more that they tried, didn't work, and at a certain point just like accept, like, okay, altcoins are not gonna work out. And that acceptance comes at the moment actually where you do want to bet on it. Because this was, if you bought here, man, we would now not be here, right? Like, we're all good financially already. Bitcoin twice the all-time high, altcoins made a new low. And that's exactly where we are right now. So why did it happen? Well, this is the thing about alt season as far as I know. But let me know down below if you have a different view on it. I'm curious. But look, people say we need retail in order for altcoins to pump, right? And there's no retail. Well, I'm retail. You are retail. Everybody here that we speak with, that we join Telegram groups with, all the people on YouTube, all these comments, whatever, it's all retail. There is retail, definitely. It's not as much retail though as Pico Altseason 2021. Why not? Because that was Pico Altseason 2021. You are comparing the retail interest, you know, based on an alt season to a non-alt season. Yeah, of course there's less. We do not need retail in order to get an alt season. Really, this is really, we need an alt season to get retail. It's the other way around. It's not that prices are low and that all of a sudden retail comes in like, oh, well, let me get in. No, retail doesn't get in when it's low. Retail gets in when it's high, right? So if we need to wait on retail to get an alt season, no, we'll never get it, right? Because retail, they don't care. They don't care. If you are already in crypto, you'll notice it's already hard enough as it is, right? Let alone if you're a total outsider, nothing is attractive for them. But we need an alt season in order to get retail. What happens? What triggers an alt season? And let's check it off then. What triggers an alt season is this. We have Bitcoin running. Whales, and I'm not necessarily talking about ETFs and institutions, but just whales, which could be some institutions, but just whales, Bitcoin whales, right? Why in the fuck would they go buy Floki if they see that Bitcoin is going up, if they see that the Bitcoin dominance is going up? Believe me, these whales are not whales for no reason. They are smarter than we are. So whales are not interested in altcoins. Why would they, right? So whales, they see Bitcoin going up and feel like, hey, that's the lowest risk asset in crypto, still very volatile. Let's ride that. Like, no reason to not do that, of course. Bitcoin dominance still going up. They feel like, hey, Bitcoin is on the run. Bitcoin is also outperforming. Let's get into Bitcoin. But what happens at a certain point, Bitcoin dominance tops. Bitcoin stalls out on price as well. So what do whales notice? Bitcoin is no longer profitable, or at least no longer very profitable. But whales are not really done making money yet. So what do? As soon as they see, okay, we rode the Bitcoin wave, Bitcoin is stalling, the dominance stopped, we're going to take our money and we're going to put it somewhere lower. And they're going to go to ETH, iCaps. They're not going to put it in rank 5,000, like, no. They're going to put it in the top, I don't know, 50, right? You know that sheet about the money flow, right? Bitcoin, iCaps. That's why that whole rotation happens in the first place. It's not because we as retail do that. It's where the big money goes. Then what happens, the liquidity in Bitcoin, which is now a lot, right? A lot compared to anywhere last cycle or where we have been in this cycle, flows partly into the altcoin market, which is sitting at lows. So a little liquidity of BTC into a altcoin market, which has way less liquidity, makes it explode like crazy. Then what happens? Retail sees that because, hey, these whales, they can put their money in Bitcoin and Bitcoin goes up 2%. But they put the same amount of money into altcoins and they go up 20x. So retail sees that. They look at the altcoin market and be like, whoa, it's getting crazy out there. There's gains. That did a 10x, that did a 10x. It's the same liquidity, but you put it somewhere that has lower liquidity in the altcoin market, so that explodes more, right? But it's the same amount of liquidity that flows. So that attracts retails, or that attracts the retail. Therefore, retail steps into the altcoin market, and they pump it even further. But they are not the type of retail that you and me want to be. We want to be there with the whales, or even before the whales, so that retail, they come in, they pump the final pump. They buy that pump, and that gives us and these whales an opportunity to exit that market. You want to exit already before that retail comes in, actually. Because otherwise, these whales are going to dump. And that retail is gone before you know it. And you don't want to be there back holding then. So that's how that money flows. And if we check that off right now, well, Bitcoin, the run, yeah, we have/had it, right? But what do we want to confirm it with again? The Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin must no longer be dominating the rest of the market. And that says nothing about Bitcoin being profitable, but it says something about Bitcoin being profitable compared to other assets in the crypto market. And if that's the case, then whales at a certain point are no longer interested in Bitcoin. And if you look at this, look, Bitcoin dominance, fine, it had a real good uptrend, but it obviously had a reversal. This is not just a correction. In my opinion, this is a reversal. And we have 5 points of resistance at a level where we are not even sitting yet, which is at around 60.5%. And I think that once we really do the next leg down, then these whales might notice like, okay, this was it. And they move it. And then what you see, and that doesn't have to happen at once because there are different whales out there, of course. You see probably going in Ethereum, because what is the lowest risk altcoin out there, right? That's Ethereum. And that's why you see an Ethereum reversal. And if you look at ETH BTC, we are kind of in the middle of that, because this is not just a bounce, this is really a reversal, especially if you look at the Ethereum dominance. It's pretty clear to say like, wow, this is indeed something. And then they do the same thing over and over again. Then it's like, oh, wow, now Ethereum is not really profitable anymore. Let's go into the next one. They write that game and they get the fuck out, right? And you want to be positioned where these whales are about to move next. And we know how that money flow goes, right? And I can show it to you, because again, if you overlay an Altseason on Bitcoin, you'll notice that Altseason has never started when Bitcoin was making new highs. Never. So we can look at Bitcoin right now and be like, wow, it should go up. Depends what you want. In order for an Altseason, at a certain point, you want Bitcoin to stop doing this. Let me show you. So if we look at the Altseason chart again, right? Where altcoins outperform Bitcoin. If you look at this. Here in 2017, where this green line is, what do you notice? This part right here. Bitcoin topped. It was this was just the end of the cycle for Bitcoin. That was just really it, right? You can see a big fat blow of top on that green line, and that was it. Bitcoin went into a full bear market. What happened though? Look at the Altseason chart right here. That's exactly altcoins on the Bitcoin pair. They were here in May 2017 and kind of went sideways until December. More than half a year, we had nothing. And then Altseason really started. Right? And when Bitcoin was already way in its bear market, altcoins were still, after that they were going down as well. But a big ass bounce on a Bitcoin pump, actually, even. So altcoins on the dollar pair until kind of April 2018 did very well. So there you go with the 4-year cycle, that even if it is the 4-year cycle, it could still mean that we still have half a year for the altcoin market, right? That happened before. Now, last Altseason, not the top for Bitcoin, but if you look at this is clearly where altcoins started to go into an Altseason, right? What do you notice? Bitcoin was kind of especially from this point, up. And when it really had that first big correction where it was really a dump on Bitcoin and where it really stopped being only parabolic, that's where Altseason started. And even though Bitcoin still went up after that, Altseason always starts on a Bitcoin dump. right? So now at this point, I'm looking at what's happening right now. And to be fair, I mean, look, we have a lot of dumps, right? There are a lot of dumps. So you could say like, well, what's going to make this the dump that starts alt season? Doesn't have to be. It could be the next one. I don't know. But then I want to just think about like, okay, it's not just this, right? Again, it's rate cuts. Okay, we have rate cuts right now, right? We didn't have it here. We had some here, right? Some, a little bit, which was great for altcoins back then, that small rate cut. But QT is now stopping, right? It's further in the post-halving year, which, you know, kind of lines up with seasonality. It depends what year you compare it with. Like 2017 alt season happened at the end of it, 2021 at the beginning. Like there's not a set date for that, right? So the fact that it's now October and people say like, well, time is running out. Again, 2017 time was already up. Bitcoin was already in the bear market and then it started. So it doesn't have to say much, right? And I think that what we needed is now, again, sentiment, but not made up sentiment, right? There's always a reason that people say like, well, it's different, it's not going to happen. And that's fine. And that never worked. But now people really believe that because they now think that they have found a good reason. The discussion that we see only right now is it's Q4. Cycle top. Is the top in? Is the top not in? Even if you don't believe it, you cannot ignore that whole conversation anymore. You might start to think about it yourself, even if you are bullish, even if you don't only believe in the 4-year cycle. At least it makes you wonder, like, man, it's all we talk about right now, right? So what I think is max pain, what I think the max pain is going to be, because there's always max pain, right? Whether it's for the bulls or bears, it doesn't matter. At a certain point, the market is going to do something that wipes everybody out so that there are a couple big winners, right? That's why you make so much gains in crypto, because a lot of people have to lose, right? Now, what is the big group of people that's going to lose? I cannot imagine that the big group of people that's going to lose is that these are the bulls, because I don't feel like that there are a lot of bulls left at this moment, right? Because everybody is saying it's over, it's different, it's not going to happen, the top is in, alt season is yada yada, cancelled. If you are now being bullish, people are laughing at you. And that tells me like, okay, so the big group of people are actually the people that are bearish or not even in crypto yet, right? The people who are sidelined. So how in the fuck is Max Payne going to be on the bull side? It's almost impossible, actually. Right? So what I think is going to happen, if I can speculate myself, is that apart from what Bitcoin does, even if it already topped, again, we saw we could still get an alt season, but I honestly, I think that the top, if we have to look at all the metrics that are actually useful, like in the macro with the ISM, etc., and then and also every piece of TA basically. Yeah, at this pace, it will take months, if not a year, before it's gonna top out. And it's not weird because, again, Bitcoin doesn't move based on purely astrology. On like, well, it's December, so we're gonna end right now. Of course not. Bitcoin tops, you know, based on the whole business cycle, the whole liquidity cycle in general. But that is already moved to the right. Except that's already been proven, that's already been moved to the right. So if it turns out that Bitcoin does follow that, then this is the cycle where we find out that it's not about the 4 years, that crypto is nothing different actually than stocks, but more volatile, but that it just follows every other financial market based on the same financial aspects, right? And therefore, it could very well be that the top is not in within now and a year, half a year. I don't know. We'll see by then how these things are looking. What I think, though, is that we are now in the biggest bear trap phase ever for alts. What I think is that people are now like, wow, time is running out. And maybe it will slow grind like this until November, and then people are completely losing their minds, right? And they all lose patience. And then people actually say, I'm out. Because on this channel as well, I noticed that a lot of people leave sometimes bearish comments, but are they actually? Because they are still here. They still give enough, they still care enough to be here. Like, they might be bearish, but there is something in their mind like, well, maybe it's not that bad. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And I think that we might see maybe a moment where it is going to be a ghost town after full-on bearish sentiment, but it cannot get much worse than this, I think. There's going to be a ghost town, that the belief is really gone because people feel like, man, it's now November, December. Like, now there's actually no time anymore. I still had hope, like, we could have Altseason in 2 months, but now, nope. People go away, and then that shift is gonna happen, because that shift is not gonna happen whenever a lot of people are here. When did Altseason start? Only when altcoins were really low on the Bitcoin pair. Really low, right? Not here. No. People first had to believe, like, the sentiment is the same as here, I think. Right? People got wrecked so hard in the bear market. And then it was time capitulating for such a long time, right? And the sentiment was terrible, right? But there was still a little hope left. And then it took too long. We got a capitulation, and people here said, fuck it. It's not gonna happen anymore. I'm out. This is really not gonna happen anymore. And only when prices are that low, it is really easy to pump it, because, hey, the liquidity, we saw there's a lot of liquidity in Bitcoin, right? So it only needs a small shift, small. And I don't mean like, hey, 20% of the Bitcoin supply. Man, not even 0.5%. The amount of, it doesn't have to do anything with market cap as well. The amount of liquidity in Bitcoin compared to the high cap altcoin market is already so much more, let alone the low cap alt. It's so much more. We need some spare change from Bitcoin to alts to make this happen. And then you can see everybody coming back like, oh, fuck, it's not that, let me get in. And we are now there. So it is actually, in my opinion, so easy right now. Like, man, yes, altcoins are low. Yes, we know that low prices are something you want to buy, but if that's already like too hard for some people, then fine. But look, it is so low. But where do we get this liquidity from? Hey, this is altcoins on the Bitcoin pair, so the liquidity needs to come from Bitcoin. Well, is there liquidity in Bitcoin? Look, yes. So is this not obvious as hell? Unless, for some reason, every whale decides collectively or whatever together, like, nope, we're not going to go in altcoins this time. We don't want to make more money. And you might say, like, oh, that's because there are too many altcoins. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whatever kind of fucking bullshit nonsense coins there are on Pump Fun or in the top 5,000. Whales are not going to look at that. Even I can pump these charts and not buy enough because it's like too low liquidity, let alone these whales. They don't care about that crap. They look at the top 50. They buy that stuff, right? And then it flows lower. But that's not a reason. Right, so there is, for me, like, absolutely no reason to believe that it is not gonna happen. And again, I can be wrong about it for sure, but I at least want to place my bets on the fastest horse right here, right? And yeah, I know that sometimes, you know, people say like, well, yeah, eventually you will be right. Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? Like, I don't care about, you know, calling it here, right? Which I said before, like, I expected at the end of 2024, beginning 2025. It's a year later. Yeah, it's a year later, indeed. I was off by a year. So was everybody, basically. But let me take that one. I was off by a year, for sure. Very wrong. But look at the price chart here. and here. It matters fucking nothing, right? So either you are on the camp like, hey, Altseason is not gonna happen and you don't buy it here, or Altseason is gonna happen and you do buy it here. At the end of the day, it didn't matter because we are now at the exact same point. We're only 1 year later. The only thing that could have harmed you is if you panic sold during that year. But I never recommended you doing that, right? So I'm like, yeah, eventually it's gonna happen. Let's be persistent about that, right? Because of course, I'd rather was rich here than here, but I'm not gonna say here last year like, okay, I'm gonna buy because I think it's gonna happen, right? And took good profit in this pump actually, so it definitely was not for nothing. But and then wait for a year and it didn't happen yet, and then here say like, well, now I'm out, like. Why? Like, did I took a loan that I had to pay off within a year or whatever? No, I can lose this money, right? I know what I'm doing, so it doesn't really matter. But all I'm looking at is reasons why it probably will happen or reasons why it probably won't happen. And I, guys, honestly, again, still see no reason why it will not happen. The charts are almost printing here. Are you fucking stupid? Why don't you buy more? Can you not see that there's a lot of liquidity in Bitcoin and not in alt? So 1 + 1 is 2 right here. What the fuck are you waiting for? Get in. That's almost what I'm seeing when I open every single chart. And it's also because it always worked so far, right? Because I don't know if you're watching how long you've been on the channel, but I remember being very bullish on these lows, and that's hard as a public content creator because you are getting laughed at, of course. And not that I care about that, but every time you make a decision that you think is good and people are saying like, oh, you stupid, you feel like, okay, all right, whatever. But it always worked out. So even if we don't get an alt season, we can at least get a pump and take some nice profits there. But still, I, again, don't know about a good reason why we won't get it. Apart from that, like I said, we need it because there's already money in alts. We have maybe forgotten that BNB is $1,100. XRP is over 220 something. Solana is really high. There is already a lot of money in the high caps. Okay, so again, if that flows into the lower caps, yeah, then it's party on, right? That's this chart. Others divided by total 3 ES, which are changed because fuck stables. Divided by others. So this is low caps versus high caps. And this is sitting so low right now. This pump right here, this was where money flew from high caps into low caps. From a $250 BNB in a, I don't know, whatever was in the top 125. And these coins 15x'd, give or take. Now we are here at the ultimate range lows, right? Ultimate range lows. And there is a lot more fuel in the tank for BNB, XRP, Solana, right? A lot, 5-6 times as much. Solana even more than 10 times as much, right? So apart from Altseason, you know, money flowing from Bitcoin into alts, what if we just get the rotation again from higher caps into lower caps? That's more than enough. And it is very likely that both of these scenarios are going to play out. And if that happens, then it's crazy. And again, guys, I imagine it is hard to imagine right now because prices are low. Altcoins on the Bitcoin pair are sitting low. But that only makes it easier to pump them really hard, right? If you are already here, yeah, then doing a 3x on this chart is going to take a lot. Now, doing a 3x or whatever on this chart is going to take absolutely nothing, basically. And we do have a lot because we know what the Bitcoin price is, man. Even if it goes to 80K last alt season, everything fucking 100x based on a 30, 40, 50K Bitcoin. So there it is, man. That's my outlook for this cycle so far. So again, when is the market gonna top out? I don't know. Is there anything showing that the top is in at this moment? There isn't. And we will keep reviewing that because things can change fastly, right? Is an alt season likely to happen or not? Again, I can come up with a lot of reasons why it will. But I have really trouble finding even one reason why it won't. So, man, let's do the right thing here. You don't want to be the type of person that here said like it's not gonna happen. These people still cry. they gave up on life 100%. Like they were waiting for so long and they capitulated at the bottom right before a big. That's something that you don't want to do. And I see these bears doing the exact same thing, and you are, again, not a guarantee, but there's a very good chance that this will be a major regret in your life, and it's gonna hurt. It's really gonna hurt. So might as well take the gamble, right? What could happen? We're already low. Lose another 50%. I'll take it. Thanks for watching. I'm tired. Like the video if you like the video though. Subscribe to the channel, turn the bell notification on. I'll see you in the next one.